Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to True Crime Tuesdays. True Crime Tuesdays is a segment on my channel where I will be doing my makeup while telling you guys some of South Africa's true crime stories, whether they are infamous or not. Anyway guys, I hope you stay tuned. I hope you'll enjoy this video, and let's get into it. Okay guys, let's get into the story of this crazy man. If you see me looking down or to the side, my monitor's on the side and my mirror is in front of me. So Pierre, PB, I'm going to be calling him PB because I'm not going to embarrass myself trying to say this man's name. So PB was born in 1880 in Claremont, in Cape Town in the Western Cape of South Africa. And he was the firstborn of 4 kids. So he had 2 younger brothers and a younger sister, and there was him, and he was born to his parents. There isn't a lot about his family. So PB was the firstborn of 4 kids, and his parents, they weren't wow off or anything. Like they were just a normal family. He wasn't rich, he wasn't poor, it was just a normal family that lived normally. And then as he was growing up, like he seemed to have been a normal child. Like everyone was like, he was normal, wasn't crazy initially. So as the years go by, he's growing, he's living life with his family. Then he turns 12, right? So this is where things start getting a little bit tense. Like things start getting a little bit tense because now he's just acting weird, man. He's doing weird things. So PB, as he's growing up, he's discovering his hobbies, he's discovering things that he likes. And he now has an interest in like cutting off cats' feet and watching them suffer to death. And he's just doing like a whole bunch of weird things as a kid. But you know how people are, especially back in the old days, like when it was still apartheid times, white kids could get away with almost anything. So even in his home, when he's cutting off cats' feet and doing all these weird things, his parents are like, boys will be boys. And it's like, why are you saying that? You guys are condoning this boy's bad behavior. So his parents were just like, boys will be boys. And they're just letting him get away with everything. Like he's getting away with murder basically at this point. And he's just having fun as a little kid, cutting off cats' feet, doing all these weird things. This is just something that I've realized with a bunch of serial killers. Cats, they don't like cats. They don't do the cats thing. One thing about serial killers, they will kill a cat. And it's just a serial killer thing. And then he's busy watching cats suffer to death, and he's just finding this as the most fun he's had in his whole entire life as a little kid. And then he turns 12. So when he's 12, he decides that, you know what, this whole cat thing, it's not enough for me. So he goes and he slashes another kid's arm when he's at school. Slashes his arm, and that's that. And it doesn't seem like he got into any intense trouble for what he did. He probably just got like a slap on the wrist and moved on. Okay, so after slashing this kid's arm, I think PB, as the time goes and as he commits all these crimes and he gets away with it, the more cocky he becomes. So he becomes more confident. He's like, oh, I slashed his arm and I just got a slap on the wrist. Well, I'm going to do something worse than that. I'm killing cats and watching them suffer, and I'm getting away with it, so I'm going to do it. So he has now decided that, you know what? I'm getting away with all these crimes that I'm committing and no one is holding me accountable for anything. So why should I stop? And that was just his serial killer mind. I don't know what it was, but That's just in his mind as a criminal, that he's getting away with it, so why would he stop? And this is why, as people, we need to hold other people accountable, especially as parents. Yes, I'm not a parent, but as parents, it is important to hold your kids accountable when they do messed up things, because you could be breeding a serial killer in your house by not holding your child accountable. Stop saying that's how boys are, because these boys are doing insane things. Anyway, moving back to the story, since I went off on my little tangent, he has now seen that he can get away with being a menace to society. So he carries on, and in the community he was known as a petty thief, a burglar. Like, he was just known as a menace to society. That's what he was. And because he's getting away with all these things, he's like, ndizophila kamnandi. Like, he decides that, you know what, because he's getting away with it, he's gonna escalate his things. So I think that's when he became a petty thief in his teenage years. As he was maturing and growing up, he starts doing worse things, like becoming a petty thief, a burglar, just becoming a A1 citizen. That's what he was doing. Then, at 17, his dad passes away. So everyone else in the family was broken. Like, his mom, his siblings, they were all like, oh my gosh, this man, the man of the house, is now gone. How are we going to survive without him being here? So after his dad passes, obviously now it's time to, like, funeral arrangements, all these things. Like, it's just time to, like, get life together for this man's funeral. So as they're planning the funeral, PB's not showing any emotion. Like, he's not showing that, oh no, my dad has passed, so I'm so sad. Like, I'm so broken, my dad's not alive. He's just chilling. Like, by all accounts, he's chilling. He's got no stress, no problems, nothing. So everyone is like, okay, PB, like, do you, boo? They were thinking, ah, no, man, this is just his way of dealing with the death of his dad. Which is valid. Everyone grieves in their own ways. Nobody grieves the same. So now, after the dad passes, the family gets life insurance money. It wasn't a big sum like we're used to now, like, ooh, your life insurance is $1 million. No, it was probably like under 1,000 euros at the time, which, okay, I'm not going to do conversions now, but anyway, it was probably like under or just above 1,000 euros at the time. He was like, whoa, there's money when people die. So this is where you start seeing that PB's a little bit, he's a little bit shaky. So he sees that, okay, fine, his dad has passed and now the family gets life insurance money. And with the life insurance money, obviously this money is now there for them to survive, right? And PB's like, whoa, instead of him being sad for his dad's passing, he sees this as a lucrative business for him to get into. He's like, whoa, I can get money just from people dying? What? So he decides, okay, this is a lucrative business opportunity. I'm going to become a loan shark. And in my loan shark terms and conditions, like, no, loan sharks like take your ID, take your passport, so you can't leave the country, do this, do that. He was like, I'm going to make it a clause that for you to get the money from me, in our contract, you are going to have to make me the beneficiary to your life insurance. And funny enough, at the time, it wasn't weird. It wasn't like a dodgy little out. Because at the time, like, people were poor, times were tough. Like, things were just a little bit rocky in South Africa. Fine. And life insurance was kind of the only out that people could get to ensure that they get their money. Because if you don't pay your loan shark, you get unalived, right? And when you're unalived and your loan shark is the beneficiary to your life insurance, then definitely they're going to get their money back, even with some interest. Okay, so everybody is like, okay, cool, PB, it's fine, we will gonna take the money from you and you will be the beneficiary to our life insurance. Cool. But now what his clients did not know was that he was gonna make sure that he got that life insurance money. He wasn't playing about the life insurance money. That was his main prerogative when it came to the loan shark business. Like, he just wanted to make sure that he got the life insurance money, because obviously the life insurance money is more than what he's borrowing the people, so he's making a profit at this time. Okay, so he's just being a loan shark, and as the time is going, he was a little bit distant to his family. At a point he was a little bit distant, so obviously his family at the time were like, he's just making money for us to survive, because times were tough. The man of the house has passed away, so PB has now become the man of the house. Okay, so he is the man of the house. He is doing man of the house duties. He is just being the man of the house as everyone expected him to be, with the loan shark business and all his other endeavors. Okay, cool. So then, at this point, everyone in the family is like, oh my gosh, he's such a great man. He is putting his life aside to support us and do all these things. He isn't even getting married, because by all accounts, he doesn't have a wife. So cool. As time is going by, he has now kind of isolated himself from his family. Not really isolated, but he's living his life. He's busy making money and providing for his family. So as he's providing for his family with his loan shark business, obviously, because that was his only way of making money. So then he gets the bright idea to have a life insurance policies for his whole family. So it's his mom, his two brothers, and himself. So he didn't insure his younger sister. We don't know why, but it doesn't seem like there was any significance with his younger sister in his life. Well, there's a lot of speculations, but that's not what we're here for. So he takes the life insurance out for himself, his two brothers, and his mother. But now his second youngest brother and his mom and himself had smaller life insurances, like they were really small. And he takes out a life insurance for 3,400 euros. Yes. 3,400 euros in the 1900s. That's a lot of money. Like in the late 1800s to early 1900s, like 3,400 euros in South Africa was a lot. Like, that's a lot of money. And he takes out this life insurance for 3,400 euros for his brother Jasper. Just keep in mind, try to remember Jasper. So his loan shark business is moving. He has these life insurances. So his mom eventually asked him, like, why is Jasper's life insurance significantly larger than everyone else's? And he says, oh no, because Jasper's so young. As he's growing and as he's going to school and doing all these things, this life insurance will work in his favor, because he can now use his life insurance as surety for his money lending in the future, as in like when he gets a student loan or when he gets whatever, right? So his mother's like, oh my goodness, my son is so amazing. Like, you care about your siblings that much? I love you, son. Fine. His mom is really impressed with what he has done. And everyone's like, okay, cool. Like, he's helping Jasper. This is all to help Jasper. There's no ulterior motive. Well, nobody thought that there was any ulterior motives, because why would they think that this man has got ulterior motives for his own family? Question mark. Right? So everyone is like, oh my gosh, PB, you're such an amazing guy. You are taking care of your family and making sure that we are all set. Irrespective of what happens, we are all gonna be set. So, okay, fine, he has now given this story that this is for Jasper's sake, like, this is for him, for his future, this is to secure that he has a good future. And everyone's like, okay, my son, you are doing it, boy. So after he takes out the life insurance for his family members, everyone is living. But now what the other family members do not know is that he has now let other 3 life insurances for himself, his mom, his little brother Jonah. They all lapsed because obviously he wasn't planning on paying them, and he did not pay them. So fine, those 3 lapsed, and Jasper's stays being paid. So Jasper's continues to be paid, right? So he pays Jasper's life insurance, but all the other life insurances, nothing. Everyone else's null and void. Nobody has life insurance besides Jasper. Obviously, his family had no idea that he had let the other life insurances lapse, because he was in charge of the finances as the quote-unquote man of the house at the moment. So this man is something, guys. I do not want to lie. As he continues to pay for Jasper's life insurance, he now has a plan, right? And in his plan, he has decided that, you know what, I personally think that it was already his plan from the moment that he did the life insurances, because why would you get life insurance for your family members and then cancel and then let everything else lapse except the one? Like, what other reason? Like, what is your reason? And remember that life insurance is the most important thing to PB at this point, right? So the life insurance is literally like, number one, people's lives are nothing to him at this point. So he decides, he goes home and he's like, oh, Jasper, my brother, you know I love you so much. Let's go on a camping trip. You and I, let's go on a camping trip to Gordon's Bay, and let's just enjoy ourselves. Let's just have a bonding moment, since you're the baby of the house, well, amongst the boys. Let's do this. Okay, cool. So obviously Jasper, as a teenager, as a 17-year-old whose older brother definitely is his idol, he's like, yes, my brother wants to spend time with me. And Jasper is the happiest kid emhlabeni, right? As they've planned this fishing trip, obviously now this poor little kid is so excited. So time goes by, and now it's time for this fishing trip to happen, right? And as it's time for this fishing trip to happen, PB is like, you know what, Jasper, I'm gonna go a day ahead so that I can go sort out our accommodation and all these things that just need to be sorted out, so that we don't get there and we are low-key stranded, right? And obviously, as his younger brother, Jasper believes anything that PB says, and he trusts his brother, because why would his brother forsake him, right? So as the time for the camping trip comes closer, PB goes to Gordon's Bay ahead of Jasper. Jasper goes the next day. But let's reverse back to when PB gets to Gordon's Bay. PB gets to Gordon's Bay and he checks into a hotel called the Holloway. Okay, so at the Holloway, the Holloway obviously is run by Mr. Holloway, and well, I guess it's not that obvious, but it's run by Mr. Holloway, and Mr. Holloway is checking PB in. He gets to the Holloway, he inquires with Mr. Holloway if there had been any drownings in the area. And Mr. Holloway, thinking this is just like random just talk, not thinking anything dodgy of what PB is saying, Mr. Holloway's like, yeah, there was a man, Mr. Roo, he drowned at Rechtervlei, right? And PB's like, oh my gosh, like, has there been anyone else? And I think it was just normal conversation towards Mr. Roo, not knowing the type of person that he's engaging with. He was just like, okay, this is just a nice guy, and he's just asking questions about the area. Okay. So PB asked Mr. Roo, okay, fine. Is there anyone else, or is there anywhere else where these things happen? In normal conversation, Mr. Roo's like, okay, fine, this is Mr. Holloway, not Mr. Roo. Mr. Holloway's like, well, besides Rechtervlei where Mr. Roo drowned, there's a place called the Sewing Room where, yeah, people go missing and bodies are never found. Like Rechtervlei, Mr. Roo was found, his body was found, yes, but at the Sewing Room, nothing. Nobody's body was found. Like, it's just a place where you drown, you disappear. That's basically the vibes that you get from the Sewing Room, right? So PB's like, thanks, Mr. Holloway. Thank you for giving me all the information that I need. You are a real one. After PB was now thanking Mr. Roo for his contribution, Mr. Roo didn't, obviously as a man, he didn't think, as a normal thinking human being, he didn't think much of the situation. He was just like, okay, random, but he's a paying client, he can't do anything to him, right? So as a paying client, PB has now asked these questions and he's moving on with life. The next day, Jasper arrives at Gordon's Bay, right? So Jasper arrives, checks in, and nothing happens. So the following day, after Jasper has arrived, so this is the day that the fishing trip was planned for, right? So this is now the day that they are supposed to go out and go fishing and just bond as brothers, right? So they go and they bond, just as any functional siblingship would happen. They go fishing. This is now around, when they go fishing, it's definitely earlier than 6 o'clock, right? So they wake up early morning and they go fishing, right? Jasper was probably so excited, but anyway. So they go fishing as the brothers and that's it, right? So when they're fishing, I guess nobody actually really knows what happens besides PB and Jasper. Nobody knows, nobody was there. Around 6:45, there are 2 early morning fishermen as well, right? So these fishermen are coming back from their fishing and they see PB walking with 2 fishing poles and they're like, why is this man walking with 2 fishing poles? So these 2 men are Dr. Ford and Mr. Dyer, right? So Dr. Ford and Mr. Dyer are like, excuse me, sir, why are you walking with 2 fishing poles by yourself? Like, what's going on, that's impossible. And he's like, oh my gosh, let me tell you guys a crazy story. So there was like this great accident that happened, and I will tell you guys once I get back to the hotel and I have told the police, right? So they're all going back to the same hotel because I guess this was the midpoint for all the fishing spots. So bear in mind, Mr. Holloway the previous day had told PB that, okay, there's the sewing room and there's Rechtervlei. So PB, putting one and one together, is like, sewing room is the best place because nobody ever gets found. So they go back to the Holloway, and when they get there, PB is so calm. There has been a crazy freak accident and this man is calm. And everyone's like, what the hell? So the police get called and he says, okay guys, this is what happened. My little brother Jasper, him and I went fishing, and as things go, an accident happened and he by chance fell into the river, right? And he got swept away by a wave and into the river he went. Everyone's like, your brother literally fell into the river. Okay, so how did this happen? And he's like, okay, this is how it happened. There was a wave that took my brother and took him into the river. When he fell, I saw him come up once. As he was trying to save him, his efforts were futile because his brother was already in the river and the current was fast. PB tries to save him, but as he's trying to save him, a second wave hits and pushes PB into the gully, right? So this is why he couldn't save him, and by the time that he came out of the gully, Jasper was gone. Gone was Jasper. Nobody knew where he was. Anyway, so after PB, as PB is telling the story, Mr. Dyer and Dr. Ford are a little bit confused, because if things played out the way PB is saying they played out, then his whole body should be wet, right? Because he went into the gully pushed by a wave. So his whole entire body should be wet. But in typical PB fashion, only one leg was wet. So how was he pushed into the gully by a wave, but only one of his legs are wet? So this is definitely striking Mr. Dyer and Dr. Ford as weird, because why is only one of his legs wet and not his whole entire body? Anyway, Mr. Dyer and Dr. Ford just keep it to themselves. So they're like, you know what, weird things happen all the time, it is what it is. Even though they were suspicious, but they said, you know what, us being suspicious isn't going to make that much of a difference to this case, right? So that night, a search party was started to look for Jasper's body, right? PB led them part of the sewing room where they were and where Jasper had supposedly drowned, and nothing. Jasper's body was never found. There was nothing there, and everyone just moved on, right? And this is where the insurance company now opens their own investigation into the death of Jasper, because obviously this is death under mysterious circumstances, right? But anyway, life carries on as the company is doing the investigation. So there's already like some nasty rumors going around about like how Jasper's death was a little bit very, like, it was weird. Like there was a weird aura around Jasper's death, right? And this, like, the rumors became worse with the inquiry by the insurance company. So as the inquiry is going on, the insurance company finds out that PB tried to pay off a barman at the Holloway to give a different account of what happened that day, right? So the insurance company finds this out and they're like, why is that necessary? And of course, PB goes back to the bar with the insurance investigator, and they go back to the Holloway and the bar, and the barman now refused to sign the affidavit of the accounts that PB is saying, because now obviously the poor man is now scared because he's like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. This is not it. Like, I definitely did not sign up for me being put through the gutter for this man. So the barman refuses, and he's like, nope. Even though he was given like monetary incentives, he was still like, nope, not happening. Nope, 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 nope. Definitely not happening. So with the dodginess of this man refusing to sign the affidavit, it was like, whoa, clearly there's some dodginess happening. And the insurance company was like, nope, we're not paying you the policy. That's that on that. The insurance company refuses to pay the policy, and this literally angers PB. He's like, wait, why are you guys refusing to pay this policy? Because I've been paying my premiums, so you guys have to pay me. And he sends his mom to take the insurance company to court. So the reason for the insurance company not paying the policy out to the Basson family is because Jasper's death was ruled death by violent, accidental, external and internal means, right? So this is just a complicated way of saying that he died in a mysterious way. Like, there's no way to really like 100% say, oh no, he was pushed into the river and that's how he died, or he got swept in by a wave and that's how he died, or his brother could have helped, or like, it's just a really fancy way of saying that we don't know what happened, so we are not liable for paying out this money to this family. PB is like, this is not happening to my family. What you guys are going to do is pay us. So he tells his mom, you know what, mom, we need to go to court to fight this because these people are insane, right? He's like, these people are crazy. The company has to pay us. There's no way that they're not paying us. So his mother's like, okay, my son, I will go and I will fight this. And they get to court, and in court, I guess it was just like a really weird court case because there isn't really a lot of information about the court case with regards to the insurance policy. But anyway, the insurance company got a court order for them to pay the Basson family. Right, cool. So the Bassons get the money, and now they are balling. Like, the Bassons are balling. They are big spenders, big ballers. They are doing the things. So after they get the payout from the life insurance, PB says to his mother, you know what, mother? Let us buy a house that we can pass on from generation to generation. Keep this in mind, hey? Like, the house is supposed to be passed on from generation to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So they buy the Orams, Armus, I don't know how to say the name of the house. So they buy this house on Heatherton Road in Claremont, right? And this is like this is a top house. It's not playing games. So they buy the house, and now they're big ballers. After they get the money, they purchase the house, and obviously his mother's like, oh, my son, you are really smart. You were really smart with the whole life insurance thing. Well, bear in mind, she doesn't know that he's cancelled while he's let the others lapse. So she's like, oh, my son, you were really smart. Now at least we can maintain ourselves because now we've lost someone that could work, right? So this is just his mom just being a mom. She's like, oh, you know what? It is what it is. It's a sad situation, but I'm just gonna have to live with it. So PB's success with the whole Jasper situation and eventually getting the money, this makes him confident. This adds steps onto his ego. Now he thinks, oh, I've been a loan shark. I'm on all these people's life insurances as their beneficiary. And I just succeeded with my brother's life insurance. I'm gonna carry on doing this. Yup, this is it. This is what's happening. We are doing the life insurance scam. Full stop, that's that, finished. Right. So, these are now small, like, they're not small, but they are not as important links and victims to the bigger picture of him getting caught. There's a man that is found drowned at Woodstock Beach in Cape Town, and he was loosely linked to PB because he was a client and PB was a beneficiary on his life insurance, right? Then there's a second man who was known as an acquaintance and known to have gone fishing with PB, and he was drowned, right? Then there's the third and fourth victims. Like, it's one crime because they're a couple, but they are his third and fourth victims that we solidly know of, right? So his third and fourth victims are a couple. They are found shot dead in their home, and PB yet again was a beneficiary of their life insurances, right? So you can see that this man, his one, like, them getting money from his dad's life insurance just honestly kick-started this whole insane scheme of his that seems to be working for him at this point, because now he's got what? Jasper's life insurance. Yes, they bought a house. Now he's got the man that was found at Woodstock Beach, he's got the man that was sailing, and he's got the individual life insurances for the couples. So this is 5 life insurances, well 6 including his dad's, that he has been put in charge of working with. Then victim number 7, his name was Adolf Beck, and Adolf was also found drowned in a river. He was actually found at Black River, so he was found drowned, and he was also believed to be a client of PB. So this is life insurance number 7, right? So he's got 7 life insurances now. He doesn't have good money managing skills. Just keep this in mind that I said that he's got bad money management skills. Okay, so in between the years of 1902 and 1905, he carried on with his scheme and nothing ever stopped him. People were turning up unalived, left, right, and center, right? But there's no solid, like, boom, letter stamp, like, this is the smoking gun type of evidence that links him to these people. You get it? So he's literally walking away scot-free. Now, towards the end of 1905, this is where his life falls apart. It hasn't fallen apart yet, but this is where his demise begins, right? So, in 1905, like towards the end of 1905, it was like probably like October, November vibes, he meets a man. This man is called Mr. William Schaefer, right? Mr. William Schaefer, them meeting, PB and Mr. William Schaefer meeting, is going to be detrimental to the both of them. So PB meets Mr. Schaefer and he befriends him and finds out that, oh no, Mr. Schaefer has a farm called the Highlands, just 25 k's outside Claremont, right? So Mr. Schaefer's got the Highlands. Cool. And PB finds out that Mr. Schaefer wants to sell his share of the Highlands. His share, mainly because Mr. Schaefer shared ownership of the Highlands with his brother Gottlieb. I'm just going to call him G because that name is definitely going to dribble me. So Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Schaefer number 2, which is William and G, they share ownership of the farm. G and William share the farm. But now William wants to sell his half of the farm because, well, there isn't an actual reason given as to why. So Mr. Schaefer, Mr. William, wants to sell his share of the farm that he shares with his brother. And PB shows interest in purchasing the farm. But now the problem is that PB does not have the money to purchase this farm, right? So the farm was initially, when Mr. Schaefer started saying, I'm selling my farm, it was initially priced at 1,400 euros, right? And then I guess PB was able to negotiate it down to be 1,020 euros, right? So fine, these two men are now in the business of selling this farm, and PB is purchasing and. So PB now has shown interest in purchasing the farm. So Mr. Schaefer is like, okay, let's draw up a contract. In our contract, you and I are the seller and the purchaser of the farm, right? So they go to Mr. Schaefer's lawyer, who's Herman, whatever. So Herman is there at his office, and PB and Mr. Schaefer arrive, and they are now in the business of selling and purchasing this farm. So Mr. Schaefer puts it in the contract that, listen here, this is the most important thing that needs to take place. The final transfer of the title deed of the farm cannot happen without me being there. Physically, my presence needs to be there with a check for the purchase of the farm. So they go to the office of Herman. They figure out the terms and conditions of the contract. And Mr. Schaefer is like, me being there is absolute number one. Nothing can happen without me physically being there, right? They agree, sign contract. Cool. So after they sign the contract, PB goes back like a couple of days later, right? Because he was hell-bent on swindling Mr. Schaefer. His whole plot to this thing was to swindle Mr. Schaefer out of his farm. But now Mr. Schaefer had put in this very important clause in the sale of the farm. So nothing could happen. Well, Herman couldn't do anything. So PB goes back to Herman and is like, okay, here's the check. I'm going to do this. And Herman is like, we can't because Mr. Schaefer isn't here. So what I am going to do is that I'm going to drop the paperwork, right? And you can then take this paperwork and take it to the bank and apply for a loan. And then you get the loan, take it to Mr. Schaefer, and you and Mr. Schaefer come back to me so that I can give you the rest of the paperwork, right? But then PB gets like a little bit angry, and he like takes out a check for like 850 euros and says, you know what, Mr. Lawyer, Herman, this is my mother's contribution to the purchase of this house. Herman's like, that doesn't change anything. So while PB was at Herman's office trying to swindle him into just finalizing everything, even though PB had a counterfeit check for the money. So Herman is now suspicious of what is going on, because what PB is saying isn't making sense, because PB now just went from, oh no, we can't speak to Mr. Schaefer because he left and he's in Kimberley, to, oh no, here's my mother's contribution, to, oh no, I'm angry, oh no, I'm pissed. Like, PB is just literally all over the show with his stories. And obviously this has made Herman really suspicious. So Herman is suspicious and he's just like, PB, I'm sorry, but I cannot do what you want me to do because I need to speak to Mr. Schaefer before I do anything, right? And now PB is angry and he leaves the office. And this is when he realizes that he needs to kill Mr. Schaefer. He needs to kill William Schaefer, and there's no two ways about it. At this point, PB has come to the conclusion that he has to kill Mr. Schaefer. So he decides that he's going to murder Mr. Schaefer, forge his signature on a receipt for the purchase of the farm, and that's how he's gonna get the farm. Like his only plan is murder. Like, how is his first plan murder? Not, oh no, I'm gonna go hustle and then I'm gonna get the 1,020 euros. No, his first plan is, I'm gonna kill this man and I'm gonna forge his signature on a receipt, and I'm gonna say he went to Kimberley, and that's just gonna be it. Once he had come to this conclusion, he went to his gardener and said, yo, please get a guy that can come dig a massive hole in the backyard. Obviously his gardener goes and is like, okay, I'm gonna go get a guy, a worker, and he's gonna come dig this hole. And obviously his mom is like, well, PB's mom, Mrs. Basson, is not on some, my boy, why are you digging a hole in the garden? Like, this is a massive hole. And he's like, no mom, this is for drainage. I'm updating our drainage system, and it's not really legal because I don't have all the permits to do this, but I'm gonna do it in like secret. That's why these guys are coming like at night or like after working hours, and we're doing this on the more dodgiest side of life. So after the hole was dug, he went and he bought lime, 2 bags of lime. And in the crime world, lime is a product that slows down the decomposition process, and it also eliminates the stench of decomposition, right? So there are 2 bags of lime that he bought, and then he also went and he bought chloroform with a different name, but on 2 prior occasions he had bought cyanide with this different name. Okay, so at least he was smart in that sense, because he, like, the chloroform and the cyanide couldn't be linked to him if an investigation was launched. So after he bought the cyanide, the lime, and the chloroform, he invited Mr. Schaefer over. On the 22nd of January, this is now 1906, PB invites Mr. Schaefer over and is like, okay, Mr. Schaefer, you can come collect payment for the farm. I'm ready. So Mr. Schaefer is like, okay, since I'm going into Claremont either way, let me take my horse to my blacksmith, and my blacksmith can fix my horse's shoe and whatever, any minor little repairs that need to happen, right? So Mr. Schaefer takes his horse to his blacksmith, and Mr. Schaefer says, okay, I'm going to leave my horse here with you, and then I'm gonna go to PB, which is Mr. Basson, and I'm going to fetch the money for the farm. So Mr. Schaefer gets on his merry way and goes to the house. When he gets there, he's met by PB and PB's friend Tobias. So Tobias and PB meet Mr. Schaefer, lead him into the house. There's a door that goes directly into PB's room. So they went in through that door that goes directly into PB's room, right? They got in, and after they entered the room, nobody really knows what actually happened, right? So it is speculated that PB and Tobias gave Mr. Schaefer a spiked drink. It was probably like spiked with a concoction of cyanide and chloroform, and Mr. Schaefer obviously was given a spiked drink and he drank it, and he was then overpowered and murdered by PB and probably Tobias, but we don't really know if Tobias really played such an active role in the murder, but it's speculated, right? And then they probably hid Mr. Schaefer's body somewhere in the room until everybody had gone to bed, and that's when they decided to take the body. They stripped the body of its clothes. So they stripped Mr. Schaefer and took him outside naked. Well, they took him outside, and this was now to bury him. Coincidentally, there was a woman, her name was Catherine Caroline Josephine Muchela. I don't know if that's how you say it, but anyway, I'm going to carry on calling her Caroline, right? And might I add, Caroline is a black woman. She was coming back from work and heading home, right? So Caroline, by chance, as Tobias and PB are putting Mr. Schaefer's body in the hole, Caroline passes by and she hears all this rustling, and she hears all these effort-filled noises, and she's like, oh my gosh, someone is trying to steal Mr. Basson's chickens. Like, let me see so that at least I can come back tomorrow and tell him, oh no, Mr. Basson, this is how the man looked, right? She was thinking that she was gonna have PB's back, but little did she know she was gonna witness something that was out of this world, right? So she peeks in through a crack in the fence and she sees PB and Tobias throw Mr. Basson's body into this hole, right? And they cover it up, and she not immediately, but after she had seen what she saw, she ran away, right? So she ran away and she was like, whoa. She definitely didn't go to the police. Yes, I know that people would have faulted her in the time, but think about it, it was 1906. Like, apartheid was still a very serious thing in our country, and she's a black woman going to accuse a white man of killing another white man. She definitely would have gotten arrested for absolutely nothing. For number one, probably accusing a white man of such a crime, and number two, they would have called her a liar and probably arrested her, and she would have probably been in danger. So she definitely didn't go to the police. Fine. So the next day, when Mr. Schaefer does not collect his horse from the blacksmith is like, what is going on? He takes his own horse and he travels to the Basson house. First, before he gets to the Basson house, he stops at a payphone and calls the police and says, okay, fine, Mr. William Schaefer has gone missing. I don't know where he is. He was lost on his way to the Basson house. I don't know if he went missing in the way, or he went missing at the house, or he's still at the house, but I'm on my way. I'm going to go check and see if he's still there. Fine. So the blacksmith goes to the Basson house and gets Mrs. Basson. This is PB's mother, right? So he gets PB's mother and she says, I think Mr. Schaefer left last night and went to Kimberley. I haven't seen him since he arrived, but I was told that he left yesterday afternoon and he has traveled to Kimberley. And the blacksmith, knowing Mr. Schaefer, is like, this doesn't make sense, because Mr. Schaefer is a very cautious man and he's a very meticulous man. He does things with intention. He doesn't just randomly just take his horse to the blacksmith to get minor repairs and then just dip and leave his horse at the blacksmith. Like, that doesn't make sense. And the blacksmith has been working with Mr. Schaefer for years, so he knows his routine and he knows how he handles business, right? So the blacksmith leaves and goes back to his shop. He's like, okay, I can't do anything. I've let the police know. I've done everything that I can. I went and I looked for him and I didn't find him, and I've done everything that I can. Cool. Then PB comes later on in the day, comes to the blacksmith's shop, hands him a receipt with Mr. Schaefer's signature, hands him a receipt with the signature and says, here, I have paid Mr. Schaefer and I own all of his assets. Here's the receipt. Cool. He takes the horse and the, I think it was a carriage or something, and gets on his merry way, right? So he leaves. Then the blacksmith is still questioning this whole situation. Might I add that it is now the 22nd of January when Mr. Schaefer left the blacksmith and said, I am going to Mr. Basson, right? It's the 22nd, but the receipt that PB had was for the 11th of January. And the blacksmith is like, knowing Mr. Schaefer, he's very meticulous and is very cautious of how he does his business. Why would he sign a check on the 11th for money that he has not received? Because he only received the money. He was only supposed to receive the money on the 22nd. So why would he sign a check on the 11th? That doesn't make sense to him. Okay, alright. They move on. So PB now jets his way to Herman and says, Herman, boom, receipt, give me what belongs to me. Okay, right. So Herman was a little bit like, he was like, I haven't spoken to Mr. Schaefer, but I can't get in contact with him. And PB says the same story again. He went to Kimberly, so you're not going to be able to contact him. It's finished. He's in Kimberly. He's gone. Like, I own all of his stuff. And after he gets the paperwork, well, obviously at this point now, Herman is forced to just hand over the paperwork because he can't hold it back anymore. Like, here's Mr. Schaefer's signature on a receipt given with Mr. Schaefer's stationery. Right. So, PB, boom, 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 goes to the Highlands, right? The farm. He goes to the Highlands and he gets there and says, gee, this is Gottlieb, Mr. Schaefer's brother. He says, gee, I own this thing. I own half of this farm. So you and your brother have now sold the whole entire thing to me. But Gottlieb's like, no, that's not how it works. And he's like, yep. And he's going through Mr. Schaefer's paperwork in his house and or his office or wherever he was going through it. And G's like, don't do that. You're not allowed to do that. Do not do that. Stop it. He's literally vehemently like protesting the situation. And PB's like, listen, yeah, I'm doing you a favor. I'm going to let you stay here until you find alternative accommodation. I'm doing you a favor and you're still protesting against me and what I own and what I'm doing. You really have got some nerve. So obviously Gottlieb is now has to let this thing go, right? So there have been many people, including G, who have gone to the police and said, William Schaefer's missing. We don't know where he is. Y'all need to find him, right? And now things are iffy. The police are investigating, but they're refusing to give a statement with regards to Mr. Schaefer's disappearance. But now, the media industry didn't work as it works now, especially with newspapers. So there's a newspaper called, on the 7th of February, this is now almost like a week or just over a week of Mr. Schaefer being missing. It's like a week or 2 weeks of Mr. Schaefer being missing. This is on the 7th. So the police has refused to give a statement with regards to Mr. Schaefer's disappearance and the investigation. Yes, they're doing an investigation, but they refuse to give a statement. So the Argus, which is a newspaper, decides, okay, we're going to write our own article with all our speculations and zero facts. After the Argus put out their article on the 7th, on the 9th, the police suddenly decided that they had to do something about this disappearance. And they put out a €50 reward with regards to any information that they can get about the case. Like a week went by and they got nothing. Second week, nothing. Third week, nothing. So as the third week went by and there was no updates with regards to the case, Caroline was like, since no one is saying anything, I low-key have to say something. So Caroline wrote a letter to the head of the CDI. So the CDI is the Criminal Investigation Department, right? So she wrote this letter to the head of the CDI thinking that she would like, it was an anonymous letter, number one. So she was just going to give information without implicating herself. So this is what the letter wrote, verbatim. It said, go and search Mr. P. Basson's file run for the missing man. Dig the ground up Heatherton Avenue for Mr. Schaefer, the missing man. So she thought that this anonymous letter would get immediate response. Like she thought, okay, I'm going to send this anonymous letter and then they're going to respond or go dig or go look or go do something. So little did she know is that the police didn't actually take her anonymous letter seriously. Well, not to say they didn't take it seriously, but it wasn't of intense urgency to fulfill what this letter is saying. These people, the police don't know if what Caroline is saying is the truth, right? So it might just be like an anonymous tip that someone just wants to frame PB, or someone just wants to start stuff. So like anonymous tips are like an iffy thing, especially when there's a reward in the incentive, especially when there's a reward incentive for giving any information about this crime. So people will then start saying, oh no, my cousin that I don't like, I saw Mr. Schaefer with him the last. Oh no, my husband that's a cheater, yes, I saw him with Mr. Schaefer last. Or like, you know how people will now start giving tips just to get the reward, number one, and to like be vindictive towards their loved ones or people that have hurt them in the past, right? So the police didn't necessarily take it seriously because this is an anonymous tip. She didn't put her name on it. It was a letter, and the letter is badly written. Like the English isn't of the expectations of someone that would be tipping off the police about something, you know? Think about the time that it was in as well. Like this is 1906. Like it's not a time when black women or black people, irrespective of what they saw or how they could help the case, would come forward and give information to the police, because things were tricky. Things were tricky at the time. After she wrote the initial letter to the head of the CDI, she got no response. There was no article in the newspaper. There was nothing. So a week later, she writes a letter to the Argus, right? And she writes a letter, and the letter says, "Sir, this is the whole story of the missing man, Mr. Schaefer. The first notice I send was for the police to know, N-O, that the missing man is on the property of Mr. Pierre Basson in his foul hawk. On the floor, there's a lot of sand on the top, not the hawk, but where they sleep in." Okay. So this letter was taken a little bit more seriously because this had more information. You get it? In her first letter, she just said check his hen coop, which is a hawk. That she just said check his hawk, you'll find it there. Or like go and search the file run of Mr. Pierre Basson. So now she said, okay, fine, go search the file run, but there's more. Like she's given more information. Like she said, okay, fine, there's a lot of sand, and it's not on top of the hawk, but it's inside where the chickens sleep. You get it? So now they're like, okay, so this person has not given more information, so they clearly know more than what we know, okay? Or more than they should know, should I say. So this is on the 9th of February, right? Then on the 10th, the very next day, PB does an interview with the Argus, right? And he says, oh no, you guys have it all twisted. Like there are so many nasty rumors going around town that I am involved in Mr. Schaefer's disappearance somehow, and that's not it. All that I have with Mr. Schaefer is that I bought his farm, and like we only had a business relationship. There's like no reason for me to be a part of his disappearance. Like why? What incentive do I have? Because I bought his farm legally, which was a lie. I own all his assets, and he was just basically like defending himself, but low-key kind of incriminating himself. But like it wasn't obvious at the time that he was incriminating himself, but after everything came out, then it was known that okay, this man was low-key incriminating himself. I don't know if you get it. So he came out in this interview, and it was obviously in the August in the newspaper, and he was jumping high and low saying he was not involved at all. Cool. So everyone was like, okay, cool, PB, you say you're not involved, whatever. And okay, people didn't have that response. That was my response to reading the article. Okay. And people were like, okay, PB, okay, Pierre, okay, Mr. Basson, you did that. And then that very same day, so the article with PB's interview came out in the morning edition of the newspaper, right? So back in the day, newspapers had like two times. So they had like the proper news in the morning, and then they had this a sporting edition where after all the sports matches, then they would report on what happened in the sports and. After the morning run of the newspapers came out with the interview, that very same day on the 10th, the police headed to PB's house with a warrant, a search warrant. So they headed to the house, and as they get to the house, they hand over the search warrant and they head immediately to the chicken coop, to the hen coop, and they start digging and digging and digging and digging and digging and digging. So after they get to the house and they're busy digging, PB decided to go hide. Like, he went and he hid as a coward. Sorry, I'm not supposed to get emotional. My emotions are not supposed to be in this. I'm just narrating the story. So PB decided to hide inside the house, and while the police were digging in the hen coop, Johan called PB and said, brother, there's police outside and they're looking for you. So after Johan came to him and said, brother, police are outside and they're looking for you, he came outside and he decided to speak to the police. Okay. So when he's speaking to the police, he's like, nope, everything was Tobias. It was Tobias's idea. It was Tobias's life. Tobias is the one that did everything. I was not involved. All I did, well, he was like, I was not involved. Not involved at all. And then he switched it up a little bit, like while he was talking to the police, and he like kind of implicated himself. So, I was just involved in the burying of the body. I didn't kill him. Tobias killed him. There's no way. Now the police are like, okay, we'll act like we believe your story, boy. Obviously they didn't say it like that, but like that was in essence what they said. And so after speaking to the police and he like low-key incriminating himself, he retreated back into his room, hid. After a while, his mom comes in. She's like, what's happening? And he's like, no, mom, let me kiss you. Okay, it's not funny. It's not funny. He was like, mom, I'm gonna kiss you and I will be outside soon. I'm just getting ready to hand myself over to the police. So while, like not too long after his mom left, like 10-20 minutes, I know between 10 and 20 minutes, it's a big gap, but like, yeah, 10-20 minutes, he shot himself and he committed suicide. And personally, in my opinion, this is the coward's way out, but I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to narrate. So he committed suicide, and now there was no way to actually know exactly how things played out and what happened. After he committed suicide, yes, Tobias was arrested and he was taken to trial. But he was acquitted from the murder because there was a lack of evidence, number one, because all the evidence points towards PB, right? So Tobias was acquitted, and that was that. And then later on the 10th of March, PB's mother, Mrs. Basson, was arrested. It was in relation to the murder because they thought that she was an accessory. But yet again, there was a lack of evidence and she was released. But now, this is where karma kicks in. But now, the sad part is that karma kicked in into people who are, to the best of our knowledge, innocent. Because PB is dead. In the time, his best friend, Tobias, has been arrested. Yes, he did play a role in the murder, but as far as we think, he wasn't the main perpetrator, right? His mom was arrested. She was innocent, but she was guilty of coddling him as an adult. So she is innocent of the crime. His brother is innocent of the crime. His sister is innocent of the crime. Yes, they were a little bit ignorant and oblivious to the things that PB was doing, but that doesn't make them murderers. The murderer in the situation is dead. Yes. And as people always say, karma comes back to you even if it hits your relatives. So if you do bad things happen to you, and if you're not there for the bad things to happen to you, it will happen to the people closest to you. Okay, so later on in 1906, after his death, a couple of months later, his family fell into destitute, right? And they were unable to pay the bond for the house. So the bank was like, bring it back, we're auctioning it. The part that's really amusing is that because of the hype around PB, the auction for his family home brought so much attention. Like 1,500 people came out and they were auctioning like everything. Like it was the house and all the things that came with the house. So everything, furniture wise, kitchen, everything, whatever. So people were bidding stupid, ridiculous amounts on simple everyday things. Like let's say for example, couch in when it was bought with 600 euros, now it's worth like 350 euros. Someone bids 1,000 euros. So the bank got back more than what they expected and more than what the content's value was, right? And this is only because of the hype. I can't find the actual English word, but like the hype around PB, his life, his crimes, all these things. In the end, everyone did say that crime truly does pay after all, because of like what happened with the auction of the house. PB, he was charged posthumously, which means that he was convicted and charged after his death. A little like small little tidbits of information is that his method of killing was through either drowning, strangulation, or shooting. He would either drown you, strangle you, or shoot you so that he could get your insurance money. And it is said that he was a calculated killer. Like he was seen as more of a calculated than emotional. So he would kill you premeditated. So he would premeditate all his crimes. It wasn't like he would just have a burst of anger and then bah, he kills you. He premeditated his murders. Okay guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you got to this part of the video, then you are definitely a real one. And you are definitely interested in crime. So please comment down below if there are any other crime stories that you guys would like me to tell while I beat this face. This is really fun for me and I really enjoy filming these videos because I like crime and I really like doing my face. So please guys, please comment down below if there are any other crime stories that you guys would like me to tell. And while you're at it, please don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, so that the algorithm catches me. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video just as much as I enjoyed it. Thank you and goodbye.